into point the whole thing to the left. Three fingers. Three fingers. Okay. Ready? This one. Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we are hearing from chapter 3, text number 37 of the Bhagavad Gita. And this verse says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Kama Esa Kroda Esa, Rajaguna Samudbhava, Mahasano Mahapapma, Vidi Enam Ihavairinam. And the translation of this verse, very important verse, says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. And the purport by Srila Prabhupada is the following. Prabhupada writes, when a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or, in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath or anger. And wrath or anger is transformed into illusion. And illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Anger is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as anger and other corollaries. If, therefore, the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath or anger by spiritual attachment. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This lust, this material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities, and when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, one should inquire into the Supreme. And the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadhyasa Yato Nivya Itaratas Chartesu Avikyaswara. The origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme or transcendental, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath, or meaning anger, can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath or anger by burning the golden city of Ravana. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his anger or wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, or lust and anger, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Very wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. So, how can it transform lust and wrath in a positive way? Well, if someone insults Krishna, you should become angry. And if someone hurts a devotee physically, you should get angry and punish them for such behavior. So, when somebody insults Prabhupada, you should get angry. You should try and convince that person not to do that. Prabhupada is a pure devotee. So whether someone insults Krishna or Prabhupada, we should not tolerate such blasphemy. And we have the legitimate right to get angry, not for sense gratification, but to defend the sanctity of the deities and Prabhupada and Krishna. Okay, so it says here that lust is also in the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. And that's a very important statement. Actually, it's not complicated. It says simply, lust is transformed to love for Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna. So that should be our culture. That should be our daily activity. That is to always engage in Krishna's service and glorify the Lord by chanting his holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, by doing that, one can change lust and wrath to love and peace, or instead of wrath, and not being angry. Uh, so it says here that both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. And then the example is Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath or anger by burning the golden city of Ravana. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Well, that is very good information. So, uh, first of all, every living entity, especially when we reach the human form of life, not the animal form, but when the human form of life, we have what's called limited free will. And what is it limited by? Well, we're limited to either accepting Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or rejecting Krishna. Or, in other words, serving Krishna or not serving Krishna. So we have that limited free will. Now, if we decide to serve Krishna and do it sincerely, then all our problems go away. Krishna will protect us. If we decide not to please Krishna and speak, let's say, criticize the Lord, as do the Mayavadis, they criticize the Lord, and the demons, they criticize the Lord, then what will happen? The conditioned souls will fulfill their lustful propensities, and when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. In other words, if someone misuses their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the influence of lust. So we definitely do not want to let that happen to us. Lust means that you have uh, so much desire that you uh, can't control it, and then you do things that are detrimental and even self-destructive, either to yourself or destructive to other people, because of lusty desires. So we have to transform this lust into love. And how do you do that? Well, you, instead of engaging in sense gratification, which will lead to lusty behavior, we should engage in devotional service in the company of genuine devotees. So that's why Prabhupada says here that both lust and anger can be spiritualized. Okay. Uh, so by desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and anger can be spiritualized. So every one of our actions should be dovetailed into pleasing Krishna. That's the art of work. And that way we become free from all the negative things that can happen to us or that we can do to other people due to this lusty and lusty and uh, uh, anger laced consciousness, and cause a lot of havoc in your life and in the lives of others. It's always bad to be in association with people who get angry real quick. That means they have a lot of frustrated desires. That's why they act like that. So we need to uh, follow what Krishna's Prabhupada is saying here. He says, the origin of everything is the supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. That's our major takeaway today. So we can transform lust and anger uh, and purify these things. That's the whole thing about spiritual life. And spiritual life is for purifying uh, the mind, the senses, everything that you touch, uh, so that you can have a spiritual life. Then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his anger by burning the golden city of Ravana. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his anger upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and anger, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Wonderful purport and wonderful verse. Kama esa kroda esa rajaguna samudbhava mahasano mahapapma vidhi enam iha vaidinam. The Supreme Personality of God has said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion, and later transformed into anger, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Well, we should take heed of that. We should take that very seriously. So, how do you become lusty? You watch movies, you read books, you associate with lusty people, and you'll become lusty. You know, this previously pornography was not allowed in the United States. It was against the law. If they caught you with pornography, uh, they would confiscate the pornographic books, and also they could fine you. But then they liberated it. They made it no longer forbidden. Look it up. When did pornography become legitimate in the United States? It was in the 1960s, I think. So something that definitely is very bad, they make it legal. It was outlawed. It was considered sinful to have pornography, and then all of a sudden they made it liberal. They made it mainstream. And today, like if you go on, if you look at the statistics of the internet, the most frequented web pages are web pages of pornography. You can look that up also, should say.
This is in 1910 to 1950s. Most pornography was considered illegal under federal and state obscenity laws, such as Comstock Act 1873, which prohibited the mailing of obscene obscene materials. And then second point says the Roth versus United States, 1957. The Supreme Court ruled that obscenity obscenity was not protected by the First Amendment, but it defined obscenity narrowly, required material to lack redeeming social value to be deemed
Obscene.
obscene. This opened the door for some explicit material to be distributed legally. And then in 1973, the landmark case established the modern definition of obscenity through the Miller test. It stated that material is obscene only if the average person finds it appeals to prurient, P-R-U-R-I-N-D, prurient interests. It depicts sexual conduct in a patently offensive way. It lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. This decision was, this decision made it harder to classify pornography as obscene, leading to the legal distribution of adult material that passed the Miller test. So in summary, while certain forms of pornography became legal with the Roth, that is 1957, and Miller, 1973 decisions, the industry as it exists today began to flourish in 1970s, following the clarification of obscenity laws. So basically 1957 and then 1973, it started flourishing.
Yeah, but if you look at the internet, the most, let's say, frequented internet pages are pornographic. Yeah, all these crazy men and women go and watch pornography on the internet, you know, and it corrupts their mind. And of course, children, teenagers, they also, since they get a computer, well, unless the computer is limited, they'll also see pornographic things, and it can look what happened to uh, the history of the Bhagavad Gita. Uh, there was this one man. He's only about 16 years old, and he saw a very low class man and woman having sex.
Ajamil.
Ajamil, yeah, and that really confused him, and then he became a sense gratifier the rest of his life. you know, so this is it's very dangerous, and they don't stop it, and it corrupts the minds of people. Many people, and then they also have secretly pornography of children, and there are many men usually, and maybe some women. Uh, they watch pornography of children, like some adult is uh, abusing a child sexually, and they have videos of it. Of course, it's against the law, but they still do it. It really corrupt people. By the way, fortunately, that is still against the law. So if they catch you with pornographic pictures or films of children being molested, they will charge you and you go to jail. But it's still happening. There's a big number of people that seek that type of disgusting, uh, you know, uh, what you would call pornography. I mean, children being molested by adults. Very, very bad. Well, but fortunately, it's against the law. They haven't made that legal yet. Okay, so, uh, well, this is a wonderful purport. It has deep meaning. And now and we've read the purport. So now we'll go to text 38. Just read it and then we'll go over it tomorrow. It's 7:30 now.
One question on this.
Yeah.
So the definition of lust, Maharaj, is when we have lots of material desires and we are not able to fulfill. Is that the right definition of lust? Or
Yeah. Yes.
the desires are not getting fulfilled and getting frustrated, then it becomes lust.
So there's desire and then there's lust. Lust means that you're overwhelmed by desire, for sense gratification. And it's very difficult to control it. So you get into trouble because of being lusty. And when your lust is frustrated, then you get angry. There are people that have very, very many material desires and they can't satisfy them. And they're like lusty desires. They're always angry. Right? You say something and then they get really angry right away. That means that, their mind is very contaminated by having lusty desires that are frustrated. They're not able to, get the sense gratification that they want. So they become very, let's say, angry for no reason at all. You say something, they get angry. We should stay away from people like that because underneath everything is their lusty desires that they're having very much trouble controlling. Okay, so they have this one group of men, and I forget the name exactly, but they sometimes kill women because uh, they say that women are not giving them sex. So that gives them a right to kill women. There's an organization like that of men. Let's see if we can look that up. Organization of men who uh, who will kill women because they're not getting sex. Look that up. And we've looked this up before. There's a name about that. I forget it what it is. There's one Armenian guy like that. He killed a woman because he was a member of that organization. And that organization is all about women are not giving sex to men, and men therefore have a right to kill them. Crazy. What's it say?
Not giving the name.
In in something starts with I. Do you see do you see that organization?
No, not yet, Maharaj.
Okay.
Don't see the name.
It's an organization of men who uh, want to have sex with women, and because they can't get that sex, they feel as if they have the right to kill women.
Incels.
Yes, that's it. What does it say?
Incels. Involuntary celibates.
Right. In other words, they don't want to be a celibate, but they claim that women don't want to give them sex. So
It,
they're
it's incel. I think incel. INCEL.
right. Okay.
Yeah. That Idaho guy is also like that. The Brian Koberger, the one who killed some students 2 years back.
Right. Exactly right. It's terrible. That's why here in this verse it says, uh, if therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both love and wrath or anger can be spiritualized. There you go. That's the solution. So what's the name of that men's group again?
Incel. INCEL.
Yeah. Yay, now you know which organization to avoid. And bunch of crazy guys.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Oh, no doubt about it. Did you find something?
Yeah, it's showing a lot of articles on it.
Uh-huh.
Incel.
Incel. No, there are men. There are men that join the group, and they exchange. You know, yeah, exchange uh, in, internet. Discussions and things like that, and it's a whole organization.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of men that are like uh, part of that type of uh, organization.
It says some of the points, Maharaj. It says the incel ideology is rooted in the belief that women have too much power in the sexual and romantic sphere, and ruin incels lives by rejecting them. And so incels are the most violent sector of the manosphere and have perpetrated a range of deadly attacks against women.
Yeah, they kill them sometimes. There was one Armenian guy. He killed a woman. He was a member of Incel. So they're saying, well, women are holding back sex, and therefore men have a right to kill them because they should give sex freely. Yeah. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Okay. So now you can understand why uh, illicit sex is the thing that corrupts people. Therefore, in Krishna consciousness, we have the principle: no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex, whether in marriage or whether not in marriage. So if one engages in sex for lust, then that's sinful. But if you engage in sex to have children, that's not sinful. Right? So why is it sinful? Because eventually the husband will try and convince the wife to have an abortion, or the wife will want an abortion. So now, because they're having sex and they don't want a child, they'll go so far as to kill the baby or the fetus. So it's very, very, convoluted and very, very nasty, and we shouldn't. I once I read this story. Well, it was in the news. There was a Russian man and a Russian woman. They were teenagers. So they were having sex in their car. But the boy, the teenager, he didn't put the brake on his, the what do you call it? The brake on his car. And while they were having sex, they were so involved in having the sex that the car started moving down a path, and it came to a ridge, and it just went over the ridge, and they died. Just imagine the horror of such a thing. They're so involved in having sex that they didn't even realize that the car was moving. It moved and eventually went over a cliff. You know, that's how very bad uh, illicit sex is, because it completely takes your mind in ignorance, takes it to a place where you're completely ignorant, and you're not really conscious of what you're doing, uh, and then after you have sex, if later on the woman gets pregnant, then you want to have an abortion. So you want to kill the baby. You see, it's a very bad thing to get involved in. Therefore, we have to follow our rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So, illicit sex means having sex for so-called happiness or enjoyment or whatever. But sex should only be used for procreating a child. And this is also said in Bhagavad Gita that one can have sex. Of course they can. You can, but it's only for procreating children. It's not for so-called happiness or whatever. So and let's see, where is that? Bhagavad Gita 201. 1 second. Anyway, it's a very nice verse in purport. It says, Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled, meaning forced, to sinful acts even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, the living entity, as part and parcel of the Supreme, is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he's not subject to the sins of the material world, but when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine. So this word sanguine, Sanguine, it means something that seems good, right? Look that up in the dictionary. Sanguine, Sanguine. Sanguine. It means something that seems good. Is So Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the or forced by the Supreme Soul or Krishna within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse, which is the verse that we're studying. Kama esa kroda esa rajaguna samudbhava mahasanu mahapatma vidyenam ihavarinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion, and later transformed into anger, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. That's truth. It's absolute truth. There's therefore in Krishna consciousness no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex. We have to follow those four regulative principles if we want to have a spiritual life. Did you see something?
On 7:11, Maharaj, it says in the purport, it says 7:11. Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles, dharma, should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise.
Right.
The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
7 chapter 11 purport.
Balam, Balavatam, Shaham, that one. Yeah.
Yes, Maharaj. In the purport.
Kamaraga Vivarjitam. Dharma Virudo Bhutesu Kamosmi Bharatarsa. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna. Purport: the strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles or dharma, should be for the propagation of children and not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious. That's a beautiful statement by Prabhupada. Beautiful statement. Okay, are there any questions, comments that anybody has?
Maharaj,
Yes.
sometimes devotees will have difference in opinions, and they may get angry, means husband and wife or with other devotees. Is that because of? And both of them may think that both of them are getting angry for Krishna, or their anger is spiritual. Is it a good thought?
Well, you mean two families arguing?
Same family or two different families? Both of them are devotees.
Yeah.
Both of them will think that they are fighting, they are getting angry for Krishna.
Well, can you offer anger to Krishna? they should offer their love to Krishna, not anger. It just means they're in Maya, that's all.
Yeah.
They're not very advanced spiritually. And they're probably violating the instructions of their guru. His guru will always say, look, control your mind, senses, don't get into arguments, respect devotees, respect people in general, but definitely respect the devotees. So, yeah, that's very bad behavior. Okay, if we don't have any more questions or comments, then we will say Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. And bid you a good evening and go to sleep early and wake up early. Chant your rounds, and then we'll continue 11 hours from now. Haribol. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Huh?
Maybe they were about to disconnect just to say Hare Krishna.
Did you want to say something?
Is anybody online group or so?
No.
Oh.
It's a good statement here. It says, I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of the